The emergency council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the holographic display. Admiral Zexstar of the Hegemony Fleet watched the tactical readout with growing unease. Red markers showed enemy positions spreading across 3 star systems like a plague. "The Void Hunters have taken the Kepler colonies," announced Ambassador Thiel, her crystalline form shimmering with distress. 40 million civilians dead in the first wave. Their bioships consumed everything. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The Void Hunters were the galaxy's nightmare, a species that literally devoured other worlds, leaving nothing but empty husks floating in space. They had been dormant for 3 centuries, but now they were back with a hunger that seemed impossible to satisfy. "Our combined fleets are no match," Admiral Zexstar admitted, his 4 arms spreading in defeat. "They adapt to our weapons faster than we can deploy them. Every engagement ends the same way, complete annihilation." "Perhaps we should evacuate the Outer Rim entirely," suggested Dr. Vallon from the Scientific Council. "Abandon those systems and fortify the core worlds." "Abandoning 40 billion people to those monsters?" Ambassador Thiel's voice cracked like breaking glass. "There must be another way." The debate continued in circles, each species offering strategies that had already failed. The Hegemony's energy weapons, the Crystalline Collective's shield technology, the Aquatic Federation's underwater tactics, nothing worked. Against an enemy that literally ate technology and grew stronger with each victory, that's when the chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Captain Sarah Chun walked in wearing a simple blue uniform that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced environmental suits and energy fields worn by the other delegates. She carried no visible weapons, no impressive technology, just a small data pad and the kind of calm confidence that made seasoned warriors take notice. "Forgive the interruption," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I'm Captain Chun, representing the United Earth Forces. We received your distress signal." Admiral Zexstar's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. "Captain Chin, while we appreciate the gesture, this situation requires military forces capable of winning against impossible odds." Sarah interrupted politely. "Yes, we understand. That's exactly why we're here." Dr. Vallon studied her with his compound eyes. "Your species has been in space for less than 50 years. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What could you possibly offer against the Void Hunters?" Sarah touched her data pad, and a holographic display appeared showing a star map. "We offer something you've apparently forgotten exists. We offer war." The chamber fell silent. Several delegates exchanged glances that conveyed confusion and concern. "War is not merely throwing advanced ships at a problem until one side runs out," Sarah continued, walking around the tactical display. "War is understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. It's finding the weakness that advanced technology can't protect against. It's being willing to pay prices that comfortable civilizations won't pay." Ambassador Thiel leaned forward. "And what price are humans willing to pay that we are not?" "Everything," Sarah replied without hesitation. "We're willing to pay everything to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's what makes us dangerous." Admiral Zexstar studied the human more carefully. Her species was young, their technology primitive, but something in her manner suggested experience with exactly this kind of hopeless situation. "What do you know of the Void Hunters that we do not?" "We know they're not invincible," Sarah said, highlighting sections of the tactical display. "They're organic ships with biological weapon systems. They adapt quickly to energy weapons and defensive shields, yes. But they have the same weakness every biological system has." "Which is?" Dr. Vallon asked. Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. It was the kind of smile that made predators reconsider their choices. "They can be poisoned." She manipulated the display, showing detailed scans of Void Hunter bioships. "Your scanning technology is more advanced than ours, but your tactical thinking has become ... civilized. You see a living ship and think about energy yields and shield frequencies. We see a living ship and think about biology, disease, chemical warfare. Chemical weapons are banned by galactic law, Ambassador Thiel protested. Against civilized species, yes, Sarah agreed. But the Void Hunters aren't civilized. They're a plague that eats worlds. Sometimes you fight plague with plague. Admiral Zexstar felt something cold settle in his stomach. What exactly are you proposing? Sarah gestured to the display, showing the Void Hunter fleet movements. They consume technology and biological matter indiscriminately, correct? They break down everything into base components and rebuild it into more ships, more weapons, more hunters. Correct, Dr. Valen confirmed. It's what makes them so dangerous. Every victory feeds their next assault. Then they give them something to eat that they'll regret, Sarah said. We bait them with technology that carries a very special gift. Something that looks like advanced weapon systems, but is actually a delivery mechanism. The delegates stared at her with growing horror and fascination. You're talking about biological warfare, Admiral, Zexstar said slowly. Talking about survival, Sarah corrected. Your civilizations have been at peace so long that you've forgotten what real war looks like. You fight with rules and honor and strategic limitations. The Void Hunters fight with hunger and desperation and complete commitment. If you want to beat them, you need someone who understands that kind of fighting. Ambassador Thiel's crystalline structure flickered with nervous energy. And humans understand this? Sarah's expression hardened. We invented it. Every other species in this galaxy evolved on worlds where cooperation meant survival. Humans evolved as persistence predators on a death world where everything was trying to kill us. We learned to be more dangerous than the things that hunted us. She touched the datapad again, and new information appeared. Technical specifications, deployment strategies, tactical assessments that were both brilliant and terrifying in their simplicity. This is your plan? Dr. Valen studied the information with growing alarm. It's monstrous. Yes, Sarah agreed matter-of-factly. War is monstrous. That's why civilized people avoid it. But sometimes monsters are exactly what you need to fight monsters. Admiral Zexstar felt his four hearts beating in different rhythms as he processed what the human was proposing. It was ruthless, efficient, and absolutely without mercy. It was also probably the only plan that had a chance of working. The Galactic Council will never approve this, he said finally. Sarah shrugged. Then the Galactic Council can watch 40 billion people die while they debate ethics. We've been fighting for survival since before we had fire. We know the difference between necessary violence and cruelty. This is necessary. The chamber fell silent as each delegate contemplated the human's words. They had called for help against an impossible enemy, and help had arrived in a form they hadn't expected. Not advanced technology or superior firepower, but something far more dangerous, a species that understood war at a level that made their advanced civilizations uncomfortable. If we agree to this, Ambassador Thiel said slowly, if we allow human forces to engage the Void Hunters with these methods, what guarantee do we have that you won't become the next threat to galactic peace? Sarah looked at her with the kind of patience usually reserved for children asking difficult questions. Because we don't want your worlds. We don't want to rule your people or consume your resources. We just want to go home to our families when this is over. But first, we want to make sure there are still families to go home to. She gestured to the tactical display one more time. The Void Hunters are 3 days out from the Centauri colonies. 50 million people live there, including 1 million children under the age of 10. You can spend those 3 days debating the ethics of necessary violence, or you can let us show you why the galaxy is going to learn to respect humanity. Admiral Zexstar made the decision that would echo through galactic history for the next 1,000 years. What do you need? Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. Give us your fastest ships, your best scanning equipment, and 48 hours to prepare a very special welcome for our new friends. Then stand back and watch what happens when humans go to war. As the delegates began authorizing the resources Sarah had requested, None of them fully understood what they had just unleashed. They thought they were hiring mercenaries to solve an impossible problem. They didn't realize they were about to witness the birth of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous allies and most terrifying enemies. The Void Hunters were about to learn why evolution had never produced anything quite like a human being pushed to their limits. And the galaxy was about to discover why peaceful civilizations pray they never have to see what humanity looks like. When everything they care about is threatened, the war was just beginning. But the outcome had already been decided by a species that understood one fundamental truth. Sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is to become something that scares the monsters. The bridge of the UEF destroyer Persistence hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Sarah Chun reviewed the final preparations. Around her, human technicians worked alongside alien specialists, their movements precise and purposeful despite the chaos unfolding on the tactical displays. Commander Torres looked up from his station, sweat beading on his forehead. "Ma'am, the hegemony engineering teams are asking questions about the payload modifications. They're getting nervous about what we're loading into their torpedo systems." Sarah didn't look away from the star charts. "Tell them it's better if they don't know. What they can't testify about can't get them court-martialed later." Admiral Zexstar approached. His forearms clasped behind his back in what Sarah had learned was a gesture of deep concern among his species. "Captain Chun, our long-range sensors show the Void Hunter fleet has accelerated their approach. They'll reach Centauri space in 18 hours, not 24. "Good," Sarah replied, surprising him. "Hungry predators make mistakes." On the main display, the enemy fleet looked like a collection of living nightmares. Void Hunter bioships resembled massive, deep-sea creatures stretched across the vacuum of space, their hulls pulsing with organic weapon systems that could adapt to any conventional attack. Intel reports showed they had already consumed 3 hegemony battle groups, growing larger and more dangerous with each victory. Dr. Valen materialized on the bridge via hologram, his compound eyes reflecting multiple images of the tactical display. "Captain, our science teams have completed their analysis of your modifications. Are you certain this will work?" "No," Sarah answered honestly, "but I'm certain conventional tactics will fail. Sometimes uncertainty is the best option available." Lieutenant Kim Chen Martinez called out from the communications station. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the evacuation fleets. Civilian ships are having trouble with the jump coordinates. The Void Hunters are somehow disrupting hyperspace in the outer system." Sarah nodded grimly. "They're hunting behavior. They're not just attacking, they're trapping their prey." She turned to Admiral Zexstar. "This is exactly why your previous engagements failed. You were fighting them like they were a military force. They're not. They're a pack of predators, and they've been doing this for millions of years. Then how do we fight predators?" the Admiral asked. "Like humans always have," Sarah replied. "We become the more dangerous predator." The tactical display updated, showing 3 distinct groups of ships moving into position. The Bait Fleet, composed of modified hegemony vessels loaded with Sarah's special modifications, was already en route to the predicted intercept point. The Hammer Fleet, hidden in the asteroid fields of the outer system, waited for the signal to strike. The Anvil Fleet, positioned near the evacuation routes, would ensure no Void Hunters escaped to spread word of what they encountered. "All ships report ready." "Captain," Commander Torres announced that Sarah opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Captain Chen to all vessels. In 30 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy something it hasn't seen in 300 years. We're going to show them what happens when humans stop being polite." She gestured to Lieutenant Martinez, who activated the ship-wide communication system. "To our allies in the hegemony, Crystalline Collective and Aquatic Federation, what you're about to witness may disturb you. Remember that everything we do is to save innocent lives. To the crews of the Persistence, Defiance, and Retribution, remember that the Void Hunters chose to be monsters. We're just better at it than they are. The first phase began exactly as planned. The Bait Fleet 12 modified hegemony cruisers dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Centauri system. To Void Hunter senses, they would appear to be standard military vessels with upgraded shield generators and weapon systems. Exactly the kind of technology the bioships craved to consume and adapt. On the bridge, Sarah watched the enemy response with professional satisfaction. They're taking the bait. Look at their approach vector. They're not even trying to minimize casualties. Pure predator instinct. The Void Hunter fleet moved like a living thing. Individual bioships flowing together in hunting formations that had been perfected over geological ages. Their organic hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that were both beautiful and terrifying. Communication methods that no conventional military had ever successfully decoded. Admiral Zextar watched nervously as the distance closed between the fleets. Captain, the bait ships are requesting permission to begin evasive maneuvers. The crew morale is, Tell them to hold position, Sarah interrupted. They need to look convincingly outmatched. If they run too early, the Void Hunters will get suspicious. Dr. Valen's hologram flickered with agitation. Captain Chun, the bioships are powering their consumption arrays. Once they begin the feeding process on those vessels, the party starts, Sarah finished. Torres signaled the bait fleet. Tell them to fire everything they have, then surrender the ships as planned. The space around Centauri's outer planets lit up with weapons fire as the modified hegemony vessels opened up with every gun they had. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles struck the Void Hunter bioships, causing minimal damage but creating exactly the kind of resistance the predators expected from civilized military forces. As planned. The hegemony vessels were quickly overwhelmed. Their shields failed, their weapons were neutralized, and the crews evacuated in pods that appeared to be standard escape systems. The Void Hunters, driven by instincts older than most star systems, immediately began the consumption process. Sarah watched the sensor readings with cold satisfaction as massive organic tendrils extended from the bioships, latching onto the abandoned cruisers and beginning to break them down at the molecular level. Everything, hull metal, reactor cores, weapon systems, even the specially modified components that Sarah's teams had installed, was consumed and integrated into the Void Hunter fleet. Phase 1 complete, she announced. Now we wait. Admiral Zextar studied the displays with growing confusion. Captain, the enemy fleet appears to be growing stronger. Their bioships are larger, their weapon signatures more powerful. How is this helping us? Sarah smiled, that dangerous expression that made veteran warriors reconsider their life choices. Because they just ate poison. They just integrated technology that carries a very specific gift from Earth's Biological Warfare Division. On the tactical display, the Void Hunter fleet was indeed more powerful than before. They had successfully adapted human fusion technology, hegemony shield generators, and several other advanced systems. From their perspective, it had been a perfect hunt that made them stronger for the next engagement. That's when the gift activated. Dr. Valen's sensors detected it first. Captain, I'm reading massive biological disruption across the enemy fleet. Their cellular structures they're breaking down at the genetic level. The modified systems that the Void Hunters had so eagerly consumed contained more than just advanced technology. Hidden within the molecular structure of every component was something that Earth's xenobiology teams had spent 6 months designing specifically. For this moment, a synthetic retrovirus that targeted the unique cellular structure of Void Hunter organisms. Sarah had studied every piece of available data on Void Hunter biology. She knew they were silicon-based organisms that used quantum cellular communication to coordinate their hunting behavior. She also knew that their greatest strength, their ability to rapidly adapt and integrate new biological material, was also their greatest weakness. The retrovirus was designed to mimic beneficial genetic material while carrying a payload that would slowly corrupt the Void Hunters' quantum cellular network. It spread like wildfire through their integrated systems, carried by the same adaptive mechanisms that made them such effective predators. "My God," Admiral Zexstar whispered as he watched the largest bioships beginning to show signs of systemic failure. "What did you do to them?" "We gave them exactly what they wanted," Sarah replied. "Advanced biological technology that would make them stronger. They just didn't realize it came with a built-in expiration date." The Void Hunter fleet tried to adapt, their bioships attempting to isolate and purge the infected systems. But the retrovirus was designed by a species that understood biological warfare at the genetic level. Every attempt to fight it only spread it deeper into their interconnected systems. Commander Torres looked up from his station, his expression mixing awe and horror. "Captain, the enemy fleet is breaking formation. Their quantum communication network is failing. They're losing coordination." "Phase 2, Sarah announced. "All ships execute Hammer Protocol." The hidden human fleet emerged from the asteroid fields like avenging angels. UEF destroyers, modified with the best technology the allied species could provide, struck the confused and dying Void Hunter. Bioships with weapons specifically designed to exploit their weakened state, but this wasn't just about firepower. Sarah had studied military history from a dozen species, and she understood something that peaceful civilizations had forgotten. Psychological warfare was often more effective than physical destruction. "Open channels to the surviving bioships," she ordered. "I want them to hear this." The communications array activated, broadcasting on frequencies that Void Hunter organisms would insti. 6 months after the Battle of Centauri, the Galaxy Defense Council convened in an emergency session that would reshape interstellar politics for the next millennium. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the massive chamber aboard the neutral station Harmony, but all attention focused on the small delegation wearing simple blue uniforms. Captain Sarah Chun sat quietly at the human table, reviewing reports on her datapad while around her the galaxy's most powerful civilizations debated humanity's place in the cosmic order. The conversation had been going in circles for 3 hours, but Sarah knew it would eventually reach the only conclusion that mattered. Ambassador Thiel's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy as she addressed the assembly. "The Void Hunter threat has been neutralized across 17 star systems. Their bioships now actively avoid any sector with reported human presence. But the methods used to achieve this victory have raised concerns about humanity's compatibility with galactic civilization." Admiral Zexstar, recently promoted to head of the Hegemony's military command, stood to respond. "With respect, Ambassador Thiel, 50 million lives were saved at Centauri alone. The human tactical solutions, while unconventional, achieved results that our combined fleets could not. At what cost?" demanded General Crox of the warrior clans, his scaled hide scarred from a dozen conventional battles. "These humans fight without honor, without rules, without the constraints that separate civilized warfare from butchery." Sarah finally looked up from her datapad, and the chamber fell silent. Something about her calm demeanor made even the most aggressive species reconsider their words. "General Crox," she said politely, "how many civilians did the warrior clans lose to Void Hunter attacks before requesting human assistance?" The general's combat plates bristled with indignation. "The Crocs do not. 87 million, Sarah continued, reading from her datapad, "including 12 colony worlds completely consumed. Your warriors fought with tremendous honor and died with glory that will be remembered for generations." She set the pad down and met his eyes directly. "But they still died, and so did everyone they were trying to protect?" Dr. Vallum projected a holographic display showing galactic threat assessments. "Captain Chun, the issue isn't the effectiveness of human military doctrine. The issue is the precedent it sets. If we normalize biological warfare, chemical weapons, psychological torture—" "Doctor," Sarah interrupted gently, "have you reviewed the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories?" The scientist's compound eyes reflected confusion. "I'm not sure what the slavers of Kareth have abandoned their operations in the Centauri sector," Sarah continued. "The flesh markets of Vega have relocated to the opposite side of the galaxy. The Pirate Confederacy has issued standing orders to avoid any system with reported human naval presence. She gestured to the holographic display. Crime in human-protected sectors has decreased by 73%, not because of increased patrols or better enforcement, but because criminals are afraid of what humans might do to them. Ambassador Krill of the Trade Federation leaned forward, her multiple arms weaving patterns of concern. That is exactly what worries us, Captain. Fear should not be the foundation of galactic peace. Sarah smiled, and several delegates reflexively moved back in their chairs. Even after 6 months, that expression still made civilized beings uncomfortable. Fear isn't the foundation, she corrected. Respect is. Fear is just how that respect gets established when dealing with those who don't understand anything else. She activated her own holographic display, showing shipping routes, trade statistics, and civilian movement patterns. Cargo ships now travel with half the security they needed 6 months ago. Civilian colonies in previously dangerous sectors are reporting the safest conditions in recorded history. Refugee populations are returning to worlds they abandoned to various predator species. The data painted a clear picture of improved galactic stability. The monsters are learning to hide because they know something worse than them is watching. Admiral Zexstar studied the information with professional interest. Captain Chin, these results are impressive. But the Council's concern is about humanity's long-term intentions. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed those of established military powers. What assurance can you provide that humans won't become the next threat to galactic stability? Sarah stood and walked to the center of the chamber where she could address the entire assembly directly. Her movement was casual, unhurried, but something about it made every military officer present unconsciously assess their tactical position. Admiral, let me tell you something about human nature that your intelligence services might have missed, she began. We're persistence predators. We evolved to chase prey across continents until they collapsed from exhaustion. But we're also pack hunters who developed complex social structures to care for our young, our elderly, and our injured. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Every species in this chamber evolved from prey animals or environmental specialists. You developed intelligence to hide, to adapt, to find safety in numbers or technology. Humans developed intelligence to hunt more effectively. The chamber stirred uneasily, but Sarah continued. But here's the thing your xenobiologists probably didn't understand. Human pack instincts don't just apply to other humans. Once we decide you're part of our pack, we'll hunt anything that threatens you. We'll chase it across the galaxy if necessary. We'll develop new weapons, new tactics, new technologies specifically to eliminate threats to our pack members. She looked directly at Ambassador Thiel. The Crystalline Collective lost 17 worlds to the Void Hunters before asking for help. How many have you lost since humans arrived? None, Thiel admitted quietly. The Aquatic Federation was losing entire systems to the flesh markets, Sarah continued. General Crocs, how many warrior clan colonies have been raided by slavers in the last 6 months? None have reported attacks, the general rumbled reluctantly. Dr. Valen, how many Trade Federation shipping lanes have been disrupted by pirates since the Battle of Centauri? Piracy rates have dropped to historic lows, the scientist acknowledged. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. That's what human pack instincts look like when applied to galactic politics. We don't want to rule you. We don't want your resources or your territory. We just want our pack to be safe, and you're our pack now. She returned to her seat. Leaving the assembly to process what they had heard, Ambassador Krill spoke first, her voice careful and measured. Captain Chun, that is. Actually rather reassuring. But it doesn't address the methods your species employs. The biological warfare, the psychological manipulation, the effectiveness, Sarah finished. You're concerned about our effectiveness because it makes your own military forces look obsolete. General Crox's combat plates flared with anger. Human tactics are dishonorable. There is no glory in general. Sarah interrupted with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a child. Glory doesn't resurrect dead civilians. Honor doesn't restore consumed worlds. When the monsters come for innocent people, they don't care about your warrior codes or your noble traditions. They care about feeding, breeding, and spreading their violence to the next target. She activated another display, showing military casualty statistics. The warrior clans lost 60% of their military forces fighting the void, hunters using traditional tactics. Human forces lost 12%, achieving complete victory over the same enemy. Your warriors died gloriously. Our people went home to their families. Which approach do you think better serves the people we're supposed to protect? Dr. Vallen's hologram flickered as he processed the comparative data. Captain, your point about effectiveness is valid, but the precedent remains concerning. If every species adopts human military doctrine, they won't, Sarah said simply. They can't. Human military doctrine requires a species willing to become monsters to fight monsters. It requires the psychological ability to do terrible things to terrible people without losing sight of what you're protecting. Most civilized species lack that capability, which is why they need us. Admiral Zextar leaned back in his chair, his forearms spreading in a gesture that Sarah had learned indicated deep contemplation. You're saying humanity serves as the galaxy's designated predator species. We're saying we serve as the galaxy's designated guardians, Sarah corrected. The predators were already here, Admiral. The void hunters, the slavers, the flesh markets, the pirate confederacy, they've been terrorizing peaceful civilizations for centuries, while your military forces fought them with half measures and noble intentions. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Every species in this chamber has lost populations to various monsters over the last millennium. How many have you lost since humanity offered to hunt the hunters? The silence stretched uncomfortably as delegates reviewed their own casualty reports. The question, Sarah continued, isn't whether humanity is too dangerous to trust. The question is whether you can afford not to trust us. Because the monsters haven't gone away, they've just learned to be more careful about where they hunt. Ambassador Thiel's crystalline structure pulsed with what Sarah had learned indicated uncertainty. Captain Chun, assuming the Council accepts humanity as a P.